Hi, my name is Jera. I teach people how to garden and grow food. This is my growing guide specific for cucumbers. So I'm going to take you guys from seed all the way to harvest and everything in between. The growth habits, how to increase production, how to select the correct cultivar or variety for your needs. And I prefer to make growing guides on various different crops because I do sell seeds from my garden online on my website, jerasgarden.com, and I feel it's much better, instead of sending you guys instructions like written on a piece of paper or whatever, to make a video and show you guys what it actually looks like and what to expect so that you can be the most successful. So I'm a visual learner. I prefer videos a million times over, a piece of paper with some instructions. So this is my all-inclusive growing guide for cucumbers. Now, I highly recommend, especially if you're a new gardener, that you try growing cucumbers as one of the first crops that you try to learn, because for one, they're pretty easy, and two, you'll gain some of the skills, some of the basic skills, especially when it comes to leaf disease management and pest management that you will get with your cucumbers that you can apply to our other more harder crops to grow. In my opinion, things like zucchinis and squashes and pumpkins, because they will also get the same kind of leaf diseases and pests and different things as the cucumbers, but the cucumbers are just a little bit easier. Also, they're pretty quick to produce for you. So if you direct sow seeds, depending on the variety, you'll start harvesting your cucumbers 2 to 3 months from direct sowing the seed. So it's a pretty quick crop, and you get some results very quickly, and hopefully that'll encourage you to keep going and trying other crops and growing in your garden. So first off, let's talk about the cultivar selection. So you purchase the correct seeds or transplants that are best for your needs in your garden. If you start looking up seeds, you'll find there's lots of different varieties. So how do you pick the right one? Well, always pick your cultivar, no matter what you're growing, based on what you plan to do with it. So some cucumbers are better for fresh eating, whilst other types are better for pickling. So if you want to just grow some for fresh eating, like to slice up and put on a salad or make it into tzatziki sauce or something like that, then you're going to want to find the cucumber cultivars that say garden variety or market or English. So the English cucumbers are a little bit longer. They tend to be the ones that you'll see in the grocery store wrapped in like plastic. So they're longer and a little bit thinner, but those are also really good for fresh eating. You'll also see some Asian cultivars. They have a lot of Chinese or Japanese names, and they look very similar to the English ones as well, long and kind of more thinner. I like to grow those specifically in the summertime because they have a tendency to handle the heat, the rain, the pest pressure, and all of that a little bit better than like the market varieties or the regular American standard cucumbers that you see like in the grocery stores. But they're very similar to the English variety in shape and how long they are. But they tend to have like bumpy spines on them, but don't worry about the spines. They just rub right off. You wash your cucumber, the spines just come right off. So if you see any cucumbers that have a tendency to be long and spiny looking, it's probably one of the Asian cultivars. Lemon cucumbers, apple cucumbers, those are also really good for fresh eating. There's also, you might come across another cucumber, but it's not actually a part of the cucumber family. It's called the Armenian cucumber. They're really long. It's actually part of the melon like family, more related to like cantaloupes and things like that than actual cucumbers, but it's used just like cucumbers and it has a very similar flavor. So those are all the kinds that are best for fresh eating. Now, if you want to pickle cucumbers, you're going to look for cucumber cultivars that hold up to the pickling process very well. That means when you pickle them, they're not going to turn to mush, because the garden type varieties or the market ones, they have a tendency to just get mushy and gross if you pickle them. So these are the best cultivars that you should be picking if you plan to make pickles. So you'll typically see the words gherkin, Kirby, or pickling for those type of varieties. They tend to be shorter and fatter. Here's a great example right here. This is the Boston pickling. It's a very old American heirloom variety. This is probably my favorite so far that I've ever grown in my garden. for making pickles. And let me just say something. I don't even like pickles. I started growing these to make pickles for my husband and other people in my family that really love to eat pickles. And guess what? Like, this cultivar, when you pickle it, tastes so good, and it holds up a nice crispy texture that even I ended up eating so much as a lot, because my whole life I just don't like pickles. But yeah, if you want to start off with a good variety for pickling, Boston pickling is my #1 recommendation as of now. And I do have seeds on my website, jarahsgarden.com, if you want to try growing these. So anyways, and as you can see, it's shorter, it's fatter. You want to harvest them when they're about 6 inches long. They're not going to get really long like your market or garden type cucumbers. If you wait too long to harvest them, they're going to get like really seedy in the middle, and they're not going to have that nice crispy texture when you pickle them. So this is perfect, actually. And I'm going to be harvesting a couple of these after I'm done making this video. And I'm going to make or show you guys my pickling recipe for a like canning pickling recipe. They're called refrigerator pickles. Super easy to make, and it tastes amazing. So I'll be making another video about that if you want to see my recipe and what you can do with these pickling type of cucumbers. There are some cultivars that are kind of in the middle. They can be used for fresh eating, and they do all right as well if you pickle them. And that would be like the Persian varieties. These are cucumber varieties that are typically come from the Mediterranean type area. One of my favorites is called Bait Alpha. It's just super productive. It's not as long as the market ones. Actually, I have some, I'll show you guys in a bit. But it's not as long as the market ones. It's kind of more shorter as well, but it's an in-between one. So you kind of have more flexibility with what you can make with the Bait Alpha pickles or cucumbers. And just so you know, there is like a regular Bait Alpha cultivar that is heirloom, and then there's another one, Bait Alpha, that is actually a hybrid. I mean, grow what you like. I always promote heirloom seeds and vegetables and cultivars because I really like to save my own seeds. Plus, I sell my seeds on my website. So for me, I almost exclusively, except for like one thing, do I grow just heirloom stuff. So everything I'm mentioning in this video or in any of my other videos, they're heirloom varieties. So I'm just letting you know, because Bait Alpha, there's some controversy. Some people think that it's a hybrid, and there's actually 2 different kinds. So just be careful if you are buying seeds and stuff, that you just make sure you know which one you're getting. But anyways, there's also some terminology you should know when growing all kinds of cucumbers. Some really interesting things about them. First off, you might come across the description saying that the cucumber is burpless, because cucumbers actually have like some kind of compound. I think it's in their skin. That's like a bitter type of compound. I forget the name of it, to be honest, but it actually causes indigestion for a lot of people when they eat cucumbers, and it causes them to burp a lot. So literally, if you see a cucumber being described as burpless, it has less of that compound, so it won't irritate, your digestive system as much and cause you to burp. So if you are one of those people, make sure you're buying burpless varieties, okay? Another term that you're going to come across, and guys, I'm not going to say this right. I'm not going to pronounce it right, so I'm going to put the word up here. But anyways, it's parthenogeocarpic. Oh my God, I butchered that word. So when you see that in descriptions of a cucumber variety, what that means is that every single female flower is basically self-pollinating. It doesn't require a bee to transfer pollen from the male flower to the female flower, so it will pollinate and grow, fruit, grow a cucumber for you. So most cucumber cultivars will have a male flower and a female flower, right? You'll usually start getting the male flowers first, and the male flowers are just the regular flowers. Here's one right here, just a regular little yellow flower. So that's where the pollen is. The bees will land here, take the pollen, and find a female flower, which I don't know how well you can see, but here's, and it's female because the female flowers have a little baby fruit at the end. So here's a little baby fruit, and there's like the flower, right? So the bees have to take the pollen from the male flowers and deposit it on the female flowers so that this will get pollinated and grow a cucumber for you. So if you've ever grown cucumbers and you're like, man, all my little babies, they just fall off, they don't grow, nothing happens, it probably didn't get pollinated. So, because yeah, obviously if it doesn't get pollinated, it's just going to drop off and die. It's not going to continue growing for you. So, you know, if you see a variety that's named as parthenocarpic, oh my God, don't laugh at me, guys. That means that every single one of these female flowers doesn't require the pollen from the male flower to make it grow this fruit. So if you live in an area, maybe you don't have a lot of bees or something like that, or you just want to have more increased production naturally, then grow one of these types of varieties. My personal favorite is called China Jade. I do have seeds on my website. It is an Asian cultivar variety, so it gets really long and thin. I don't have one growing right now because it's November, and it does much better during our warmer months. So I will definitely grow that during my warmer months, usually from March all the way through August is the last time I'm actually direct sowing some. But that is my favorite. It is parthenocarpic, and I get a lot of production out of it because every single one of these little babies here are going to form fruit. So it's personally one of my favorite varieties. And then you'll see another term called gynoecious, which means that particular cultivar only makes female flowers. So you don't even get male flowers, you just get female flowers, which is another way to like increase your production. Some cultivars of cucumbers are both parthenocarpic and gynoecious. So that means that they produce all female flowers, and all of those female flowers are self-pollinating. So you get a lot of production out of that. But I find those kinds of varieties tend to be hybrids. I've never found an heirloom like that. If you have, please comment below. I want to know about it. But yeah, those tend to be hybrids, which is cool. I mean, grow them if you want to. But I'm really happy with my heirlooms. They still produce a lot for me, and I'm happy with them. I prefer to be able to save my seed. But that's definitely a fun thing to try growing. You know, one of those hybrids that has it all, basically. Like I was mentioning before, one of my favorite cultivars is an Asian type of cucumber called China Jade. They have a tendency to handle like tropical conditions, because I'm in Florida, guys. My summer is like jungle gardening at that point. It's not normal. All of you all north of me have these, the states north of me have like wonderful, beautiful summer gardens with like tomatoes and peppers, and those don't survive in my summer garden, okay? Like I literally have to change the mentality to what will survive in the tropics of like Asia and Africa and South America if I want to grow anything productive during the summer that will actually take it. So the Asian varieties handle that a lot better. They handle a lot more disease pressure over a longer period of time before they finally give out, because your cucumbers are going to get diseases, and I'm definitely going to talk about that. As you can see, this one has quite a few things already. Powdery mildew, it's got these brown spots, I don't know, blight. I give up trying to identify them. Just know that they are leaf diseases, okay? So the Asian varieties handle it a lot better. So I have a tendency to grow those during the summer, like the hardest months. And then the market type for fresh eating, or like these here for pickling, they do a lot better with like moderate, more temperate type of time of the year. Obviously, if you're in your state north of me, you can grow these during the summer pretty well. But here in my state of Florida, or zones 8 and up, where it gets really hot during the summer, it's better to grow these fall, winter, and spring. So they're thriving right now in my garden. It's November. I'm not going to get my first cold fronts or anything like that until the very end of December. And I'm already harvesting, and they're happy and they look great. So that is just what I do here in my personal garden anyways. All right, guys, we're in my covered patio. This is where I do the majority of all of my seed starting. And I'll have to make a whole video about the basics of seed starting. I think it's a critical skill that you as a gardener learn at some point, because you'll save a ton of money. I mean, you won't have to be buying seeds and transplants season after season. You can share them with other people. I think it's really important. And you get access to cultivars and varieties that are rare, different colors, things you'll never find like in your local nurseries, because they tend to carry the same items over and over and over again. But anyways, just some basics about seed starting for cucumbers. This is what the seeds look like. I was actually drying these. This is the China Jade variety for my website because I harvest the seeds and I sell them there. So that's what they look like. They're flat, white. They're not too big, not too small of a seed. When you're starting seeds for cucumbers, let's talk about your first and last frost dates so that you can determine when you should be starting your seeds. So a general guideline is to direct sow seeds 1 to 2 weeks after your last frost date has passed. So for me, in my Zone 9B garden here in Orlando, Florida, my last frost date is usually the second week of February. So if I wait a week or two after that, I can start direct sowing seeds directly in the ground. That means my ground is warm enough, or should be warm enough at that point, that they should germinate just fine and not have any issues. If the soil is too cold, the seeds aren't going to germinate. They're going to sit there for a while and probably just rot. So you want rapid germination to ensure that, you know, your seeds aren't going to waste and things rot out. So I always recommend for cucumbers to direct sow if possible, because I just find that their vigor and strength and their growth speed is much faster when you direct sow seed them versus starting them in, you know, containers, pots, cups, whatever. But sometimes, you know, you want to get a head start on the season or whatever. You might want to, you know, sow them indoors or something during your winter time, which quite honestly, I do both because I try to push the season or start my season as soon as possible, as early as possible, so that I can get the most production out of my garden for that season. So if you plan to start them in solo cups or, you know, containers or whatever, you're going to start them about 6 weeks before your last frost date. So I would have to backtrack 6 weeks from that second week of February where I know I'm going to get my last frost. So backtrack 6 weeks. That's when you're going to want to start sowing your seeds in your containers or whatever. You can sow them in the 72 like seed trays like this right here. I mean, you can sow a lot in here. Get them to germinate. But then this is pretty small. You see, this is a small size container. At some point, you're going to have to pot them up because they need a little bit of space. They're going to start growing really quickly. They're going to need a little bit more space before they are ready to be transplanted, you know, at the 6 week mark. So I don't like wasting time. So for the crops that get kind of bigger in size, by the time they're ready to transplant, like peppers, tomatoes, squashes, pumpkins, all of that kind of stuff, I just prefer to go ahead and start them from seed in large solo cups. I think these are the 8-ounce ones. So I just like cut 3 little drainage holes at the bottom, fill it up with some potting mix, preferably something sterile because, you know, soil, compost, stuff like that has bacteria, molds, funguses, and that can attack your seedlings, rot the seeds out and stuff like that. So preferably some kind of medium that is sterile or made for seed starting. So I like to use these big cups so I don't have to waste time potting up. Just go for it. Just go for the big cups and don't waste your time. So I like to put 2 seeds per cup of the cucumbers just to make sure that at least one germinates. If both germinate, I leave them and I plant the whole thing in the planting hole, you know, 6 weeks later or whatever. In my garden, I find that they don't really compete against each other. I don't have issues with that. I also fertilize very well, and I'll be talking about my fertilizing techniques for cucumbers as well later on in this video. But yeah, just so you know, 2 seeds, if both germinate, that's fine. Just leave them. They're doing great. So 6 weeks later, they'll be ready to transplant into your garden. You're going to dig a hole and always put some fertilizer or something in that hole to give them a nice, good head start. So yeah, pretty easy to start seeds. They do need, if you want to speed up germination, and again, just help you be a little bit more successful, I highly recommend that you get some heat mats. Can't see them that well here in the video, but I do have some heat mats here because the warm soil temperatures will also speed up germination and just make them grow faster and be a little bit more vigorous. These are very inexpensive. I get them from Amazon. I do have a link to Amazon in the description of this video that will take you to the same ones if you want to get them. So I use them for a lot of crops, in particular tomatoes and peppers, which is what you see here. They really love that warmth. It really stimulates good germination and rapid growth. So yeah, you're going to want to give them some heat. If you can give them some extra light, that's even better. These are not grow lights. These are actually shop lights that are 5,000 lumens or above. So really inexpensive to use shop lights instead of like actual grow lights. And they're happy. They'll grow fast and quickly for you. So 6 weeks later, they'll be ready to transplant into your garden. Another thing that I want to mention, which I do for anything, any crop that I start from seed, is as soon as the first set of true leaves appears, you're going to want to start fertilizing with some form of a liquid fertilizer. My personal favorite is Fox Farms brand. It's called Grow Big. And whatever fertilizer you end up using, you're going to dilute it at half the strength of whatever the directions say when you're fertilizing seedlings. You don't want to burn them or something like that. So for example, if the directions say for a normal general feeding, put 1 tablespoon per gallon of water. For your seedlings, you're going to do half of a tablespoon per gallon of water. So it all depends on, what fertilizer you end up using. But when you start fertilizing them, probably about weekly with that until they are ready to be transplanted, again, you're promoting a nice, healthy, lush green growth. So the set of first true leaves, I don't have a cucumber example of that right now. But I do have an example with the tomatoes. And it's the same no matter what. So for all seedlings, generally, or veggie crops and stuff, the first set of leaves that will appear there, as you can see, they're super tiny, is not like the actual set of true leaves or an adult leaf. These are called cotyledons, if I'm saying that right. And so they just help this seedling start, producing its own energy and whatever to grow. So once the next set of leaves that'll pop out of here are now the adult, the first set of true leaves, and they'll look like your regular, tomato leaves, tomatoes. So as you see, it's a little bit more serrated or whatever. So now I know this is ready for me to start fertilizing. So that's the stage. Same thing with the cucumbers, okay? They will develop their leaf structure just like that as well. Remember when I said the Asian varieties of cucumbers are long and spiny looking? Here's one that's forming. You see all those spines? They're okay. They don't hurt you at all, but you just rub them off. But here's an example of one, and obviously it still has a way to grow. But that's what the Asian cultivars tend to look like. All right, now let's talk about sun, soil, water requirements. This is the Bait Alpha variety. So I want to show you, this is the one that I said is kind of in the middle where you can use it for fresh eating and for pickling. I'm actually going to harvest this one soon. But this is Bait Alpha right here. So in general, cucumbers really like sun. They really, really do. So put them in a full sun spot. If you want them to have enough energy to produce all of these beautiful cucumbers, put them in a spot that gets full direct sun. As far as soil, they actually tolerate a wide range of different soils. This is heavily composted with wood chips and just organic matter over the years. So they do great, obviously, in that kind of soil. But they also grow really well in my normal native sandy Florida soil, just as long as you fertilize them. So they do adapt to quite a wide range of soil and don't really require too much from that. As far as water, I mean, cucumbers are basically, water. So they do like decent amounts of water, but they don't like their soil to be saturated and hold a lot of water for a long time. So if you have a drainage problem, they're not going to be happy in that. It's going to cause root rot and your plant will ultimately die. Let's talk about its growth habits and optimal temperatures. So cucumbers really thrive better when your outside temperatures are anywhere between 70 to 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Once it gets above 90 degrees, like during my summertime here in Florida, they really struggle. So optimal temperatures, 70 degrees between 90 degrees. So how do you figure out what month do you get those optimal temperatures? So I really recommend that you check out a website. It's called plantmaps.com. You put in your zip code and it'll tell you what garden zone you're in, your first and last frost dates, a lot of useful information to know. But at the very bottom, there's a chart broken up per month. And it'll tell you your average minimum and average maximum monthly temperatures per every single month. So to kind of gauge it, just look for whatever months that have a minimum average temperature of 70 degrees Fahrenheit to kind of get an idea, okay, that's a good month to plant and grow cucumbers. So that'll help you out a lot. So as far as the growth habits, sometimes you'll find cultivars that say that they are bush type cucumbers. I personally have never grown those kind because I prefer vine type of cucumbers. Most every variety is a vining type of cucumber. So it's going to need some kind of a vertical structure to grow on. I have other videos showing how I made this particular trellis. It doesn't need any tools or anything like that. It's very easy. It's portable. I can take it down and put it back up by myself. And they do really well. So if you want to find the supplies for this same exact trellis, I do have a link in the description to Amazon where you can find all of those supplies. But I find that they really like this kind of mesh garden trellis. Any opportunity that I get to grow something vertically, I try my hardest to do it that way. It picks the plants up off the ground where there's a lot of diseases, and it makes it a little bit harder for pests to like get on them as well. So I highly recommend that you do vertical gardening with your cucumbers. And the leaves, so they're very susceptible to a lot of leaf diseases. You're going to get them. Please don't freak out if you get leaf diseases. It is part of gardening. You're going to get them. They are very, very susceptible, especially to powdery mildew. Here you can see this one is got like some burnt brown, like yellow spots. I don't know if this is a kind of blight. I don't know. I give up trying to identify whatever leaf diseases I get because I'm in Florida and we get them all. Our humidity, our rain, all of that. They're going to get them all. But you can treat for them. I have one thing that I use to treat for every single leaf disease you could possibly get in your garden. And that is a spray with hydrogen peroxide. So I mix 1 cup of hydrogen peroxide, which is the same as 8 ounces per gallon of water. I have a hose end sprayer that I dial in and it will mix it for me. So literally I can spray and treat all of my cucumbers in like minutes, just like 2 minutes, and I'm done with my whole garden. So the hydrogen peroxide will do a couple things. It will kill whatever pathogens are causing your leaf diseases. It works fantastic for powdery mildew. And it also cleans and disinfects your leaves too. So in general, it's very, very helpful. So at the first signs of like leaf diseases or powdery mildew, start treating with the hydrogen peroxide. Make sure, I would say maybe once every 5 days if you have a pretty bad infection, and then you can go ahead and start decreasing it down as you get things under control. You don't need to spray forever. And no matter what you're spraying in your garden, I always recommend that you spray in the evening when all the pollinators are gone. I don't know how hydrogen peroxide will affect the insects. I don't even want to go there. So I just spray in the evening. I haven't noticed issues with bees or nothing in my garden. Every year actually I have more and more and more. So just a reminder, if you're going to spray anything in your garden, just do it in the evening. But yeah, and literally you'll walk out here, you know, a couple days later and you will see like all of these like leaf disease blotches and spots kind of look dead now. They're not growing. And that's a good sign that your treatment is working. Also, as soon as you start seeing this kind of leaf, diseases, treat immediately. Don't wait on it, guys. This is basically now a host plant for whatever pathogen this is, and the pathogen will spread, and then it will spread to your other crops too. So when you see issues in your garden, treat them as early as possible. It will also require less amounts of treatments and chemical applications or whatever, and spreading and affecting the rest of your garden. Another thing that will really, really help you with your cucumbers and just getting the diseases under control in general, and this can be applied to any crop you're growing, is removing the dead or diseased leaves. I, in particular, like to remove the bottommost 12 inches worth of leaves because there's a lot of pathogens in the soil and they will jump up on the leaves from the ground up. Especially when you're watering your plants and water is being splashed around, it actually deposits those pathogens on the leaves. And particularly true for tomatoes. So just removing like the bottom 12 to 18 inches worth of leaves really helps prevent that. Mulching the base very well also helps prevent that water backsplash. And you're not hurting the plant by doing that. If you're removing these dead, ugly, diseased, old leaves, damaged leaves, you're not hurting your plants, guys. You're actually promoting it to put on new, healthy, green growth, okay? So don't be afraid to like just, remove these leaves. I'm going to start removing them today. There's quite a few here at the bottom. By removing all these, gross, old, diseased leaves, you're opening the plants to better air circulation. and that will cause the leaves to dry faster, and again that will prevent a lot of those leaf diseases and pathogens from spreading, because they spread usually through the water and like humidity in the air. As far as fertilizing, I really love to use organic granular fertilizer, and it has to be organic because I will fertilize a lot of my crops, not just cucumbers, in small doses on a weekly basis. So like 1/8 of a cup, I'll just sprinkle some at the bottom. That keeps the nutrients consistent. So this plant has availability to nutrients at like all times. It speeds up rapid growth. So that's really helpful if you're removing a lot of diseased leaves, that you have a good fertilizer game to make that plant produce nice, healthy new green growth that will outpace all those old and diseased leaves that you're removing. All right, as far as pests, this is why I say cucumbers is a good beginner crop to learn, because the same pests that will affect your cucumbers are also going to eat up your squashes, zucchinis, melons, and all of that. So it's a good idea to get a grasp on how to control that. The number one pest you're going to see is worms, all kinds of worms. Okay, the most common one that I see is like a little green one with like 2 white stripes on its back. It's called a pickle worm. And you know you have worms when you see the leaves are munched on. You'll find little balls that are either orange, yellow, or black. Those are the eggs and or the poop of those worms. And you might not even see them because they come out at night. So if you're not inspecting your plants at night, which I'm not out here in the nighttime, you're not going to see them. But trust me, they are there. They are attacking your plants. This one, I don't really have a worm problem right now because I really work on keeping it under control. But you just see how that looks just munched on. That definitely is a worm that caused that. And trust me, you will know. So the best thing that you can do to control worms is spray with BT or spinosad. But for cucumbers and stuff like that, BT works really well. BT is an organic treatment. It's non-toxic to both humans and animals. It's considered organic because it is a spray of a certain bacteria that's called Bacillus thuringiensis. And when you spray that bacteria onto the surface of these leaves, the worms eat the leaves, therefore ingesting that bacteria, and it disrupts their entire digestive system. So they die. And it's very effective. I cannot grow cucumbers and a lot of other crops if I did not spray with BT. Just my garden, I'm in Florida. I feel like our worms are like the Godzilla of all worms. You get them all and they very quickly get out of control. Like their population and numbers explode very quickly. So as soon as you see worm damage, treat it with something, okay? I mean, some people will go in there and hand pick them. You can certainly do that. You can come out at night, put a flashlight, hand pick some of those worms. They'll drop them in like a bucket of soapy water. You're more than welcome to do that. But I literally get hundreds. There's no way I can keep with hand picking. So I just use BT spray. It's very effective, cleans, kills them very quickly within the next day. And you want to be on top of that because those same worms that are munching on your cucumbers and stuff will also munch on other crops in your garden. So you want to make sure you knock that population down quickly. So after you've started your seeds, you've taken great care of your seedlings, you transplanted your plant, it's growing, it looks beautiful and healthy, you should start harvesting 2 to 3 months from there, from either direct sowing the seed or from the date you transplanted your seedlings into the garden. So it's a pretty quick crop, 2 to 3 months. And I noticed that most cucumber varieties will put on like a big flush of fruit at the beginning and then it wanes down drastically from there. So usually that first flush is the best and you're going to get the most out of that. If your plant keeps growing and surviving, you'll get another flush, in a couple weeks later. Not as good as the first one again, but still, that's just how it is. And then it's time to harvest your cucumbers. So every cultivar is a little bit different. This is the Bait Alpha. I'm actually going to harvest this one right now. This is a good size to get it at. Any bigger than this, and they get full of seeds in the middle and like fibrous and just not the best texture for like fresh eating. All right, so this is the Boston pickling variety. This one is perfect and ready for harvest. Look at that. And obviously the more that you harvest your cucumbers, especially at the right time, you're going to stimulate this plant to keep producing more. So harvesting frequently is really important. Here's another one of the Boston pickling. And this is that bait alpha that I showed you guys earlier. This one is also ready. I'm gonna pickle all of these. So I'll be posting a video about how to make some quick refrigerator pickles, no canning required. And these taste just so delicious. So if you guys enjoyed this video, please remember to subscribe to my channel so you get notified when I post new videos. I plan on making grow guides for every single kind of crop that there is and that I grow here in my personal garden. I really appreciate your support and your comments. That helps me going and creating all of this content as well. Thanks. Have a great day.